Good morning.
Good morning.
It's quite a challenge, but I'm here as a friend. I am somebody who believes that the great outdoors is indeed a part of the healthcare delivery system, and am somebody who forever has thought that thinking that just writing more prescriptions for medications and people seeing more doctors and going to more hospitals is not the way we're going to become a healthier nation. I'm sorry to say, and I'm glad to hear that an orthopedic surgeon agrees with that, and perhaps more of us can get together and continue making the case that we've got to figure out how we use the non-clinical part of the world to achieve what I think should be the ultimate goal from my perspective as a person who's in the position that he's in as Chief Medical Officer of a large health plan, as somebody whose life commitment continues to be optimizing the health of people on the planet. But more specifically in the jurisdictions that I live in, it seems to me that at the end of the day, optimal health brings you three things. One, from the standpoint of those who only can think in terms of medical care, I do believe it reduces medical care costs, and I'm more than happy to try to make that argument. Optimal health improves economic competitiveness. We have a healthier workforce. It is a more productive workforce, and I will show you a slide in a minute where I will suggest to you that a third is national security. And you might say, well, that's a bit of hyperbole, and there's military folks who believe otherwise. As it relates to I took some notes because Dr. Sook made some interesting points. A couple of housekeeping things. There will come a point where I need to walk out of here. I'm not Cinderella, but at 12 o'clock I need to be in my car and sort of getting somewhere else that's work-related, and I wouldn't be able to be here unless someone was willing to pay my salary, so I better get back there. But even being here and getting an opportunity to meet Derek Crandall and to meet Dr. Sook and join again with Nancy is a good thing and could result in some future next steps. So I will pick up the phone if you call this particular health plan person in the future. Outdoors as a drug, what a concept. I would be all in favor of drug abuse if that was the case. And as it relates to the leisure, it seems to me that any good self-respecting physician who's out there taking care of people would realize and articulate the fact that leisure is a very, very important part of the work-play balance, and that's very important for stress reduction, that's very important for relationships, whether it's with your family or with the great outdoors or with friends. It's very, very, very important. And the last point that I'm going to make, and then I'm going to really race through a PowerPoint presentation, not so much because I'm going to try to go through every slide, because I'm not. I'm going to leave you with that. You can look at it at your leisure. There's, I think, lots of information and some just sort of nuggets where you can go after some things. You hear the terms in the health reform world, and if you're not in that world, you will hear the term accountable care organization over and over and over again. And there are some people out there who are beginning to say, why aren't we talking about accountable health organizations? And if we were talking about accountable health organizations, whether it was at the local level, state level, or federal level, parks and the outdoors and the recreational sector would have a place at that table. And it's an important place to be had, I will submit. This is the commercial. You can look at it in a minute. Our promotion is to improve the health and wellness of people who have Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance, as well as the communities that they live in. There is a challenge to achieving this optimal health that I talked about, and I apologize. I'm going to be talking really fast, but y'all can listen really fast as well, so we'll be all right. Age, obesity, and demographics are three things that are going to challenge our ability to optimize health. As we age, we don't stay as healthy as we were when we didn't age. We'd like to believe that Jack LaLanne could have lived to 200 years, but if you didn't hear the news, he passed away yesterday at 96 years old. But he was the consummate health guy, and it says you can still live until 96 and be relatively healthy and have a great quality of life, and wouldn't we all want to have that? But age is a challenge for our nation because our nation is getting older as a percent of the population. Obesity, you've already heard about. I've got some slides. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those, but they're there. And then demographics. One of the other things going on in our nation is that our nation is becoming browner. There's an increasing percentage of Latinos. African Americans continue to be a significant percentage of the population. And it's not that that's a good thing or a bad thing, but as we look at the characteristics of some subpopulations, there are some challenging characteristics that we need to be mindful of. pardon me, and addressed. One of those is higher likelihood to be obese. Another one is lower likelihood to be living in a place where access to the great outdoors is just what it is. And so as we think about the great outdoors, please be mindful that if you live in inner city America, the great outdoors may look very, very different. And yet, think about this, if you live in a place where there are trees growing even along the boulevard, that's better than living in a place where there are no trees along the boulevard. I may never get through this PowerPoint, but that's okay. We're the fattest nation in the world. That's the last time I'll use the F word, and I'm going to move on. We have a growing obesity epidemic among children. Childhood obesity is more than a cosmetic issue, and again, you'll be able to see this in your slide in the slides themselves. And being an adolescent who's obese confers a much higher risk that you're going to become an obese adult. And so, one of my favorite bumper sticker quotes in this world is, it's better to build a child than to fix an adult, and the great outdoors is a place to begin the process of fixing our children. And if you have a love for the great outdoors as a child, it is likely that you will continue with that great outdoors later. Not that you can't be a grown-up who goes hiking and gets blisters and sweats and says, that was the most wonderful time I've ever had. You sort of have to grow into that and understand what it is that's coming. So it can be a challenge. Another point, because I'm going to need to conclude before I get to the end, because I may never get through these slides, as I thought about this and sort of the relationship between health and the great outdoors. Obesity is sort of a no-brainer. Of course, that's one that we think about. But I myself thought about some other things. One is the notion of unstructured play. One of the other things that's going on is that while we know that physical activity is really important, those of us who grew up at a different time when there wasn't so much pressure to kind of structure every single minute of a child's life, even in the school setting, unstructured play was the way that we learned how to negotiate challenges between ourselves, how to make up games, how to be imaginative and be creative. And unstructured play in the great outdoors, what better combination could you have? The other is thinking back many years ago when I was a young person and just sort of learning to learn, and I became familiar with something called the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is in your brain. I'm not even going to try to pretend like I know neuroanatomy. You can look that up. It's not that important that I impress you with where it is, as much as it is that it's really, really important for setting our biological clocks. And those biological clocks are much better set when you're outdoors, and the sun becomes one of the things that helps set that biological clock. And so being outside is important in and of itself. Seasonal affective disorder, not the biggest problem in the world, I would submit to you, but it is a problem that can be addressed by being outdoors. And so those people who live in the northern climes, some of them have moved to places like Phoenix and Tucson and Texas because there's more daylight in the wintertime than there is up in those parts of the country. And then vitamin D, we hear about vitamin D deficiency, and while we have to balance exposure to the sun with protection from the sun, there is still value in being outdoors and having at least some of that vitamin D synthesis come from there. Here I still said to you earlier, that here maybe this is a piece of information you didn't have. 27% of young Americans are too overweight to join the military. That's a national security issue, ladies and gentlemen. And those are the same young people that want to be in our police force and who want to be firefighters and want to be rangers and want to be and work in our parks. And frankly, they cannot get the job done, not because they don't want to, not because they're less human or less worthy. They just don't have the capacity from a physical perspective to get the job done, and we need to pay attention. Obesity leads to type 2 diabetes. Won't say anything more. Here's a really important slide. Healthy aging is really, really important. Or maybe a different way of saying this. A healthy life course is important for healthy aging is a better title for this slide. And what it says is that if you reach the age of 50 and you have a clean risk profile from a cardiovascular disease profile, it is very, very much more likely that you will be a Jack LaLanne and not somebody who maybe you can recognize. My dad is someone who's had 2 heart attacks. He has congestive heart failure. He can't do the things he would like to be able to do. But I will tell you that at 50, his risk profile wasn't looking very good. I'm 53 years old. Mine's okay compared to what his was. I'm hoping that that means I will be at Jack LaLanne, and at 96 go with people saying even yesterday I was still working out. This is a picture that says, this issue of childhood obesity and obesity, very complicated, but I ask you to look at the right side of that slide, and while it's the penultimate little bullet, it's there. Leisure and recreation is a part of what some say is the very complicated solution to addressing childhood obesity. There are some efforts at the federal government level to look at issues having to do with the outdoors. % of days that beaches are open and safe for swimming, increase the portion of rivers, lakes, and estuaries that are safe for fishing and recreational purposes. And we need to make sure, y'all need to make sure, there's more of that in things like Healthy People 2010, in things like physical activity for Americans, so that the notion of the great outdoors gets institutionalized in those conversations that have to do with the health of America. The U.S. National Park Service, you guys probably know, the focus has traditionally been geology, wildlife, and historical events, but there's a tremendous opportunity to change the focus around things like environmental health and wellness. Walking around and not only talking about what's around you, but the value of the walking around to do it is a very, very good lesson. Rather than sitting in a place and watching a really crappy slideshow in a rec center. Sorry, I did that last time. It kind of offended some folks, but frankly, please, you can't sit young people in front of still pictures and think that they're going to pay attention for more than about 17 nanoseconds. Schools are a place where we ought to be doing some things, but here's that health benefits of outdoor play that I talked about. You all know that Be Out There is the National Wildlife Federation movement that says the values are not only to your body, but they are to your mind and they are to your spirit. Now, we're not talking about the Bible spirit, but we're talking about that bigger notion of spirit. When I am troubled and I am just feeling kind of troubled with the world, my best thing to do is go for a run where the sky is the limit. And where trees are what I see around me. It's the way it works for me. And I do other things, but running is the easiest thing to do straight out of my house. Texas Partnership for Children and Nature is something that's doing some amazing work in this state, has laid out some 4 areas of focus, and I think I'm going to close because I want to leave this. Let me just run through this and make sure there isn't some slide that I want to make sure I put out there. There are goals in these areas, and you'll be able to read those. I was a part of something that looked at local government actions to prevent childhood obesity. I want you to see that there was a focus on the outdoor environment, but I will tell you that as I sat there, I realized in retrospect we didn't think about the outdoors. We thought about parks in urban areas, and that's really important, but we really had sort of an urban mindset, and that was probably a shortcoming that ought to be addressed in a future study. But here's one: build and maintain parks and playgrounds, safe, attractive for playing, close to residential areas. They do have to be somewhat close because for some folks, going 3 hours or spending 3 days camping is just not possible. And it's not possible for me in this day and age. I love to camp. I love to put on a backpack and go out, but frankly, neither my wife, nor my kids, nor my job is going to allow me the luxury of doing that I had when I was younger. Now you could say, well, you got to figure that out. You're right, I do. I'm going to have to go out for more runs and sort of come to grips with that. Some things that health plans are doing, this is a competitor, but they've looked at strategies that have to do with some things that need to happen. And you can see environmental change, and while, again, you can say, well, that's awfully urban, installing a lighted walking trail along canal banks, getting people outside is a value in and of itself. I think I've heard that in some of the communication that I've seen over and over. Blue Cross Blue Shield has a comprehensive approach to dealing with child health, among them supporting something called, used to be called Green Ribbon Schools, and now is called, tell me, Nancy? Oh, Green Ribbon Schools. Okay. And we are helping to support that in the state of Texas. That was my last slide. Those are my kids. We're outside in Colorado. I applaud you for what you're doing. Please be patient with those in the medical care community. Michael and I will work hard to find like-minded people, and kind of like what happens with all evangelical movements, it may take a little while with some segments, but we're committed to making it work for you. And if you call or send me an email, I will answer. Can't promise it will happen in 10 minutes or 24 hours, but I will answer, I assure you of that. Thank you very much.